That was a lot to remember. Let's break it down. Let's talk about it. Remember last year, if you were here, we used the acronym TACO to evaluate websites. TACO covers what we just learned about in the video. Check to see if you remember, or can guess, which each letter in TACO stands for. T. True. Ask yourself the following questions. Is it being reported in more than one place? If something is true, I should be able to find it on more than one website. So let's say I saw somewhere that Braden Holtby is the goaltender for the Washington Capitals, but I don't know if that's true. So I want to check. And I'm going to Google goaltender Washington Capitals. And I see on all these websites that Braden Holtby is one of the goaltenders for the Washington Capitals. So I can feel fairly confident in saying that yes, Braden Holtby is the goaltender for the Washington Capitals. Does it make sense? If you're reading a website and it just doesn't make any sense, you can go ahead and rule it out as being a good source of information. If it doesn't make sense, it is clearly not a good source of information. Let me show you what I mean. Those of you who were here in 6th grade might remember this website, All About Explorers. It is, as you might guess, all about explorers. So let's go ahead and look at the entry for Christopher Columbus, an explorer that most of us are probably familiar with. So it says Christopher Columbus was born in 1951 in Sydney, Australia. Right away, that raises some flags with those of us who have already studied Christopher Columbus. It says he was born in 1951, but you might remember that Christopher Columbus was sailed to America in 1642, and he sailed from Europe, not Sydney, Australia. So that right there contradicts what we already know to be true. That's enough for me to roll out this website. But if we go ahead and keep reading, down at the bottom it says Columbus died in 1906. What? Up here it said he was born in 1951, yet somehow he traveled back in time to die in 1906. This website contradicts itself. Therefore, it is not a good source of information. It doesn't make sense. Does the author provide sources? That means, does the author tell you where he or she got his or her information from to write that article? They should. The author should always provide his or her sources so that you can go check them out and decide for yourself whether or not it's good information. How do you do that? Let me show you. So we are going to look for websites to answer a question. I've heard that drinking too much water can kill you. I want to know if that's true. So because Google is a search engine and I'm not asking it questions, I'm going to pick out keywords for my question, which is water, drink, and fatal, which means can kill you. Then I get all these results. Remember, this box right here is not Google answering my question. It is an excerpt that contains some of my keywords that Google has pulled from a website. In this case, that website is Wikipedia. I'm not going to use that right now. Instead, I'm going to use this article, Can Drinking Too Much Water Be Fatal, from healthline.com. Click on that. And can drinking too much water be fatal? Know the facts. This article contains a lot of information. I don't see little numbers or hyperlinks to other sources. I see it to other articles explaining like what swelling in the brain is, but not telling me where the author got his or her information from. But let's keep looking. When we scroll down to the bottom, we see this link right here. It says 10 sources. When we expand it, we see that the author has listed all of her sources. We can see the title of the articles that she consulted, the author's names, and also a link to check out those articles ourselves. So that's awesome. The author provided us with all her sources that we can follow up on and take a look at the information for ourselves. So this author did provide all of her sources. That gives me a good feeling about this article as a source. A. Authoritative. How do you know this website is reliable? When deciding whether or not a website is authoritative, you have to know who the author is, or who's responsible for that website. Basically, on whose authority am I being told this information? So the first thing you want to do is find the author of the web page or the article you're looking at. So we're going to scroll back down, remember our water question, and look at the Healthline article that we first looked at, and try to find out who our author is. Now over here, we have a picture of a person, which is usually a good indicator that is the author. It says medically reviewed by Elaine K. Liu, MD, on May 22nd, 2019, and written by Crystal Raypole. Alright, so I can't click on Crystal's name. I can't find out who Crystal is, but I can click on Elaine's name. This is a little bit different because it was written by one person, but it was medically reviewed by someone else. This is a good thing because this article is about medicine, right? Whether or not something can kill us, that's medicine. So medically reviewed basically means that they had someone look at it and make sure it was medically factual, that the medicine in it is true. And that person that reviewed it was Elaine K. Liu, MD. When someone has MD after that name, it means they are a medical doctor. Do you think a medical doctor is an expert in medicine? I do. But just to make sure, I'm going to click on Elaine's name. And here it tells me more about Healthline and how they work. And it tells me that Healthline's medical affairs team focuses on making sure that Healthline's content and services are accurate. When you read all this, it basically says they want to make sure that what they're saying is true and it's good information and will help people. And then it tells us about the people that work for Healthline. And we can scroll all the way down here to get to Elaine. And it tells us that she is a board-certified internal medicine physician. Basically, she's a doctor. She went to med school and she has studied and worked in medicine for a really long time. So she's probably a good person to tell us about a medical issue, like this one, whether or not water can be fatal. But just to be sure, let's go back to our Google results and look at some other articles. This one, Strange But True, from Scientific American. Strange but true, drinking too much water can kill. So it says basically the same thing as the article we looked at before. Now this one is by Coco Ballantine, and it links, her name's a hyperlink, so let's click on it. And it doesn't tell us anything about who Coco is, but it's okay. We're going to double check. We're going to open a new tab up here, and we are going to Google Coco Ballantine. And then we're going to look at her resume. And basically we see that she's a writer. She got a degree in biology, but her big degree is in journalism. So she does know science, but most of her training is in writing about science. Not being a scientist, but writing about scientists. So let's go back to the story. Because I'm not sure Coco is a science expert the way that Elaine is, right? Elaine's a doctor. Coco is a professional science writer. But when we read the article, we can see that Coco has talked to some doctors. See, we have a quote from Amin Aranat, who is, we've got a bunch of words, but basically he works at and is very high up at hospitals and medical schools. We have more information that Coco got from another doctor, and we have another quote from a man who's chairman of medicine at Georgetown University Medical Center. So while Coco isn't the same expert that Elaine is, Coco did interview a lot of doctors and people that I would consider experts. So both of these articles are good sources of information. This one by Coco, because Coco talked to a lot of doctors, and this one by by Crystal, because it was reviewed by Elaine, who said, yep, all of this is true, it's good information. So you always want to know who the author is. If the author is not an expert, then you want to know if they interviewed experts. An important thing to remember about your authors and your sources is that you should always be able to follow up on them. You should always be able to find them and hopefully contact them in case there's any questions. If someone's going to put their name out there and say, yep, this is true, they should also be available to answer more questions and stand by their work. So, to summarize, you always need to have an author. That author might be a single person, or it might be an organization like the American Library Association, but you always need to have an author, and that author should either be an expert in that field or have talked to experts. And that is what makes a site authoritative. C. Current. Is the information still good? Is it current? Meaning, is it up to date? Is the information still true? Is it still good information? We figure that out by looking to see when the website or the article was originally published, if it's been updated, and do any links and things still work. So back to our water article on Healthline, it says right here that it was medically reviewed on May 22nd, 2019. So that's really recent. Probably not a lot has changed in this field since then, and this information is still good. That's awesome. This article also has links to other articles on Healthline. Like here, swelling in the brain. We click on it, it brings us to the page for cerebral edema, which is swelling on the brain. So this link still works. Awesome. That's a good sign. We also need to think about, is it important that our website is up to date? Does the question we're trying to answer require the most up-to-date information? If we're looking for information on treatments for cancer, then yes, we want the newest, most up-to-date information. If we're looking for a recipe for chocolate chip cookies, we probably don't need the newest recipe. One from 1950 will probably work just as well. Flour, sugar, butter, eggs hasn't changed much. So an old recipe will work, but not old cancer treatments. So sometimes it's okay to use older articles, and sometimes you're going to want the newest and the latest and the greatest. Make sure you keep that in mind when you're looking at websites. O. Objective. Just the truth, nothing but the truth. Is the website objective? First of all, what does it mean if something is objective? Something's objective. It means it's based on facts rather than feelings or opinions. And that comes from Merriam-Webster, which is a dictionary. This can be a little bit tricky to find out, so we need to ask ourselves a couple questions, and we'll probably have to do a little bit of digging. First, we want to think about, what is the purpose of the website? What was the motivation of the creators when they made this website? One way we can find that out is to look at the About section of a website. Let's go back to All About Explorers and see if we can find the About section. All websites should have something like an About section. There'll be a link that says About or About Us or something like that. It's usually at the very top or the very bottom of the website or the web page. All About Explorers puts their About right here. Let's go ahead and click on it. And we read, it says, All About Explorers was developed by a group of teachers as a means of teaching students about the internet. So the purpose of this website is to educate. Some websites, the purpose might be to make money by selling you something or convincing you to join their cause, or just to spread information. This one appears to be to educate. It was created by teachers to teach students about the internet. Now, if you remember, when we were looking at Columbus, it was saying how it's giving us all this bad information. But if we scroll down, A note about the content in this site. And the creators say, because we wanted to make a point about finding useless information, even in a site which looked at first to be fairly well put together, all of the Explorer biographies here are fictional. While many of the facts are true or based on truth, many inaccuracies, lies, and even downright absurdity are mixed in indiscriminately. As such, it is important that you do not use this site as a source of reference for your own research. Okay, so that's why the information about Christopher Columbus was bad information. They made it up because they wanted to teach us about the internet. I feel comfortable saying that this site is purely for educational purposes. Let's go back to Merriam-Webster. What's their purpose? I don't see anything about at the top here, but if we scroll all the way down to the very bottom, there's a link that says About Us. For more than 150 years, in print and now online, Merriam-Webster has been America's leading and most trusted provider of language information. So their purpose is also to educate, to give us information. That's their entire purpose. Yes, they will sell you dictionaries here, but that's not their main purpose. They gave us the definition of objective for free, right? They didn't tell us that we needed to buy a dictionary to get better information. They gave us the information. So their purpose, the information they're giving us, is not trying to get us to buy something. Their purpose is to educate. Another way, other than reading the About section, you can look at the domain names to try to decode a little bit of what the website's about. So all websites have URLs. The URL is always up here in the box. We can type in, if we know the URL, the website's address, we can type it in directly. So, like All About Explorers, we can type in allaboutexplorers.com and it will go directly to that site. This is the URL. The domain extension is this part right here. The URL is always www.something.something else. That last something else is the domain extension. So let's take a look at common domain names. If a website if the URL ends in .com, that means it is a commercial business. It's for profit. They're trying to make money. This doesn't mean it's a bad source of information. We just need to see, how are they making money? They could be making money by running ads that have nothing to do with the information they're giving us, and that's fine. Now, if we're looking at a website about the benefits of using salt, and they're making their money by selling salt, then we should be a little bit suspicious of the information they're giving us about salt. Okay? So .com doesn't mean it's a bad website. It just means we need to take a look at how they're making their money. .org means it's a non-commercial organization. That means they are not in it to make money, but we still need to know their purpose. Is their purpose to get us on their side? Are they trying to get us to think a certain way about an issue? They may or may not be trying to influence our opinion. We'll talk about that a little bit more. .edu means it's an educational institution or university. All right, educational institutions exist to educate. So this should be an objective source. We still need to check out our author and verify the information we see, but we can have a little more faith in a .edu website. .gov means it's a United States government organization. Again, they should be a reliable source. Now, they might be trying to convince us to think one way or another, but they should be telling us the truth. .mil means it's a United States military organization, and .net means that the website is hosted on a network somewhere. You need to ask yourself, what network, what server is this website being hosted on? Now, our SCPS.net web email addresses, those are hosted on a server owned by Stafford County Public Schools. We know this. That's who gave us the email address. We can trust that. But if you're looking at a website that's just .net, you need to take a closer look. Who's running this? This could be hosted on a server in some guy's basement. We don't know. We need to be suspicious. There are other ones like .io and all sorts of different things. Be super, super suspicious of those domains with the weird extensions, all right? And again, no matter the domain extension, you need to explore the website. You need to look for more information. The last thing we want to talk about is bias. If something is biased, it means it's slanted one way over another. A way to tell if a website has bias is looking to see whether or not both sides of an issue are being presented. If both sides of an issue are being presented, that means the website's objective because it is looking at both sides of the issue. If only one side of an issue is being presented, it's biased. It means it's leaving out information that we need to help us make a decision. You always want as much information as possible. You want both sides of the issue. Now, not everything will have two sides, right? The sky's either blue or it's not. But is an earlier start time to school better for children? That might have two sides. So we want to see why an earlier start time to school would be good, and we also want to see why it might not be good. If a website only tells us that an earlier start time is great, there are no drawbacks, then it's biased. It's not giving us both sides. These are the things we need to be thinking about when we're looking at websites. I know it's a lot, but you can do it.